Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence. Let's get into it.
Yes, checking the sound to make sure that it works. It does. Happy Saturday, happy weekend. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe because, again, it really does help us out. We try to read most if not all of your comments live, but we do pause the whole show for super chats, and those help us out as well a lot. And we have memberships. Said it pretty much the right way.
Absolutely. I've been working on sound equipment all morning, and man, I am horrible with sound equipment. I'm horrible with sound editing, and it's been giving me a headache.
I've been working on getting back to making shorts from other videos, and it's taking a lot longer than I thought it would, just because I forgot how to do some of the effects. But they will be coming, don't worry, probably publishing one later tonight. But I'll start by saying hello to Rafa, that says hello, sent you an important email. Got it. Thank you so much. I will respond in turn. I hadn't seen it until you mentioned it, so I will respond as soon as we're done with the show. So thank you very much, Rafa. And Pete says, beauty ride today with 7 other bikes through the I can never say that word. Kananaskis. Skis. Yeah? Did I say it right?
You did as good as you could. That's good enough for me.
And Pete says, airbrushes are awesome, and says, I use mine on my bike parts all the time. Pete, hello, says, painted 7 different colors on primed spoons with an airbrush today. Still learning. Not sure what that means.
Well, we got Nat a white microphone pop filter and a white microphone stand for the other set. And now I got to paint the actual mic. So we got to go get some spray paint.
Maybe we should get someone else to do it.
No, it's fine. It's
a professional.
I am a professional. Look at me.
Not at painting.
I'm Guy from Nat and the Guy.
Pete says, I'm building a perfect grade, perfect strike Gundam. Do you know what that means? Okay, me either. But if any of you are watching the England-Norway game, which is 1-1 right now, let me know how the scoreboard ends up, because as you know, I'm still watching.
Well, and for everybody that doesn't care about soccer, we do have one article about
Football.
UFC. The big fight is tonight. Max Holloway, Conor McGregor.
Nobody cares about it. It's Argentina.
What are you talking
Switzerland.
about? Nobody cares. I care.
Yeah, but nobody else cares.
Okay.
Everybody cares about Argentina, Switzerland. Okay. Should we start? Do we have breaking news?
Yeah, we got some breaking news.
Do we?
One of them is Conor McGregor, actually.
Oh, yeah, we do. Okay, so let's go to... Oh, hold on. Silverfeet, thank you so much. Norway won, England won still, going to extra time. Thank you. Silverfeet, always my savior when we do the show and there's games playing. But yeah, let's go to breaking news. Breaking news, nobody's won yet.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
But let's actually get into the show, and starting with Bill Maher saying...
Oh, yeah.
Canada is a cautionary tale, and yes, it is. American liberal icon Bill Maher says Canada has moved too far to the left and is destroying the country.
Yeah, I think Canadian conservatives know it. Americans know it. The entire world knows it. Canada's a joke at this point, and Bill Maher put it very precisely here. I was actually going to put him on the cover of the thumbnail. He's really famous. I'm surprised I couldn't find a good picture of him, though.
Maybe he's just not a very attractive man.
There's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Not anymore, anyway. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the U.S. adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And we're sleeping in tents. The median price of a home here is $346,000. In Canada, converted to U.S. dollars, it's $487,000. If Barbie moved to Winnipeg, she wouldn't be able to afford her dream house, and Ken would be working at Tim Hortons.
And $487 is the average price of a home if you calculate all of Canada. Most people live in just a few major cities. We're looking well above $500,000, if not to $1 million.
For an apartment in Vancouver.
Well, and let's remember one more thing. This is coming from a liberal like Bill Maher. Even he knows Canada's cooked at this point.
And because of mortgage debt, Canada has the highest debt to GDP ratio of any G7 nation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad. So does their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary healthcare and ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free healthcare. Look, I'm not saying Canada still isn't a great country. It is, but those aren't paradise numbers. If Canada was an apartment, the lead feature might be America adjacent. And if America was a rental car, Canada would be America or similar. And again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness, like the saga of Canadian shop teacher Kayla Lemieux, whose pronouns are she, her, and those.
Okay, and we can leave it there. And I will say one other thing. I mean, if Trump does win the midterms, I fully expect him to pull out of the USMCA. That would create a massive collapse within Canada. And going into the 2028 election, it would be very easy for JD Vance or Marco Rubio to start pointing at Canada of what the United States would become and what democratic states are becoming. The only check and balance on it really was Trump. He's the one that put the monkey wrench and slowed this stuff down and started to reverse it now.
Not only are people in the middle moving, as Bill Maher said, more towards the right-ish, very-ish. In Canada, the right is essentially the left, similar to here in Mexico. But they're also moving to the U.S. itself. Like, they're all already leaving. The people that are sane enough to see that this is an issue are no longer there anymore. And again, we talk about Alberta because Alberta still has that critical mass of people with the hopes of being able to leave with the chunk of land as well and be able to be independent without having to move to the U.S. or elsewhere, and by saving the province, eventually turning it into a republic. But for everybody else, they're essentially no longer there, which is why we always say it's not that surprising that Mark Carney's numbers are so high, because it's the only people that are left in the country are those that still think that Mark Carney and the Liberals are a good idea.
Yeah, it's becoming very obvious. Any younger conservatives or any younger people in general that can get a job in the U.S., they're fleeing to the U.S. because they know their economic future kind of depends on it. Canada is cooked at this point, and it's obvious it's only going to continue under the next 3 years of Mark Carney leadership. A lot of retirees are moving down here to Mexico, living off of their CPP and other retirement funds because it's a little bit cheaper than the U.S. and you can buy property through a corporation and things like that.
And it's interesting because I was doing research for a video I will be releasing soon. I just don't give the dates anymore because I don't know about the healthcare system. And I was looking into how long it takes to get an MRI appointment. And to be able to get an MRI in the US, it's anywhere from 24 hours up to a few weeks. In Mexico, in the public system, it's up to 12 weeks, which is the longest wait. But in Canada, it's up 18 weeks or further. So it takes way longer in Canada, even when you're looking at the more public sectors in the rest of the North American continent.
Well, there's so many reasons why so many Canadians especially, but also so many Americans actually come down here to Mexico for either state-of-the-art treatment when it comes to medicine or for dental care as well.
Yeah. Okay, but speaking of America and Trump, as you mentioned him, Table Salt says, quote, breaking, Canada to hand over 50% of toll revenue for the new Gordie, thank you. Gordie Howe Bridge after paying 100% of the bridge's construction costs. And that's how it's going to end up being for Canada, essentially just being taken advantage of because their elbows are so far up they can't see anymore.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's kind of crazy right now, the way the Liberals are trying to spin this. And this is how things are going to go from here on in. There was a recent, I think it was a Wall Street Journal article talking about how Mark Carney is now leading the middle powers against Trump. He is the front man. What do you think is going to happen? That's like an open declaration of economic war against the United States, brought to you by the Wall Street Journal and Mark Carney. This is only the first of many. Donald Trump, leading up to the midterms, is going to do little things like this. And after the midterms, if he wins, he's going to really go at Canada. I think he understands he's going to have to break Canada and Mark Carney and this communist hold he's got on the country. Carney's poll numbers keep going up, even though the country's numbers keep going down.
Donald J. Trump says on Truth Social, I was able to cut a much better deal for America, and by doing so, we'll be allowing the new and spectacular Gordie Howe International Bridge spanning Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, to open on July 27th, as scheduled. The original deal made was unacceptable to me. The new deal is great and fair. Thank you and congratulations to the Canadian government. May we both have many years of success with this wonderful new development, says President Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, when Mark Carney decided to start going tit for tat for every little thing when it came to tariffs, rather than putting everything on the table, like the Gordie Howe Bridge, like the submarine contracts, like the jet contracts, all that needs to be combined. That's how Trump likes to make deals. That's how he made deals with a lot of other countries. Carney wouldn't give an inch. He's not giving an inch, and it's going to cost him in the long run. I mean, the new pipeline he's proposing to go from Alberta all the way out to the East Coast, they already have a pipeline that goes through the United States. The United States is going to look at that as economic warfare, and it's going to take a decade to do. The United States, if Canada actually starts building that pipeline, which I'm highly doubtful of, but if they do, the United States is going to start picking them apart as soon as shovels go in the ground, if not earlier. Oh, and we got a super chat there.
Oh, hold on. Okay.
Thank you, Pete.
Yes, Pete, where are we? Pete, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying England scored in extra time. Yeah. Again,
it's funny.
I'm cheering for both because England took us out. Mexico took out Mexico. So I kind of want them to win it all. So we were against, the world champion. But at the same time, I really like Holland and I like Norway. And I like their little story of a team that could. But I don't think they can anymore.
Well, it's crazy that the United States, Canada, and Mexico are all out, and England is the big country for the West that's in, I guess.
Well, no, Argentina. For the American continent, it's Argentina.
Well, no, for the Western countries.
Argentina is West.
Okay.
Isn't it? I mean, South America.
Most South America. Okay.
We're not gonna fight on it. But lastly, and a sporting event that you're way more interested in than I am, Antonio Sabato. While you watch this, I'm guessing I'll be watching the Argentina game. Antonio Sabato says,
Well, and I could have got a much better clip. I just wanted to get something to quickly talk about this. This is tonight. It's on Paramount Plus, so you no longer have to pay pay-per-view fees, which is fantastic. This is a fairly big fight. It's going to be very interesting with Conor McGregor's comeback. He's had a lot of substance and alcohol issues, so it's going to be interesting if he can actually get it together. I think he's fighting way above his weight class, but he's fighting somebody that used to be at 155 as well.
Good to see you, sir. Welcome back. Good to be back, y'all. Thank you so much. It's great to be back. Thank you to all the fans here in attendance. I hope you're all ready for a blockbuster event tomorrow night. The match is breathing.
And I will say this, outside of the UFC, I wish Conor McGregor hadn't been involved in so many scandals, whether it was drugs, alcohol, or women. It's really kind of destroyed his political career. And even though he has had a lot of scandals, I like a lot of his political stances, and Ireland needs somebody like that because they've handed their country over to the globalists and non-elected leaders, as well as elected leaders that don't seem to be implementing the will of the people within Ireland. There's a huge independence movement in Ireland, just like in Alberta. It's not quite as far along yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it for sure.
And about the fight? Because I don't know how to talk about the fight, so you talk about it.
Well, I think because of the weight class, Conor has a lot more...
He looks skinny.
He's way bigger than he used to be. He used to look like a skeleton walking. He used to fight at 155. Yeah. He broke his leg. He literally snapped it in two.
Fighting or?
Yeah, fighting in the ring. I think you were at my bar watching it the night that fight was on. That being said, he got on massive amounts of human growth hormone and steroids. So that allowed him to bulk up. So I think his more natural weight is 170, but I don't think he holds the 170 as good. His movement is kind of compromised.
Okay. But now let's go back to your comment. Thank you. Nothing to add. Let's go back to your comments and then we'll get into Alberta. Stay free. James Halliday, hello, says Bill Maher is the only liberal with a brain. I'd say about half a brain, but I mean, he's slowly recognized that, number one, the errors of his ways, but number two, the fact that listening to the other side sometimes does bring a little bit more common sense and also critical thinking back to your own side.
Well, if the Liberals want to have any chance going into 2028, I think they're going to learn in these midterms socialism doesn't work. And if it does work going into 2028, it's not going to have mass appeal for a presidential election. It may work in smaller state elections. It's definitely not going to appeal to the moderate middle or even people on the other side. That being said, they're going to need somebody in a liberal sense that thinks more like Bill Maher. They have a couple people. They have Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith. Now, Bill Maher's not talking about running. Stephen A. Smith could be that black horse candidate that has never really been in politics, like Trump wasn't in politics, and kind of come in there and maybe bring a little sense to the Democratic Party. That being said, the wiring behind the scenes, no matter what candidate they put up for the Democrats in the States, I'm not voting for it. I don't like it.
James Halliday also says, and I still don't agree with him on many topics, neither do I. And I do think he still is wrong in several, but at least he's willing to listen.
Yeah, but I mean, he does talk to the other side a lot. I watch his podcast as well. And he's at least honest. I believe those are his actual true views, even if I don't agree with those views. And that's more acceptable than most Democrats these days.
Pete says, pay $2 a liter today. That's for 94 octane. So like half premium, almost premium-ish. Here they only have premium and non-premium.
That always used to mess me up in Canada because I was born in Canada, but I lived a long time in the States. And when I started driving, I was living in the States. And then I went back to Canada. I was like, oh, the gas is not that much. Why is everybody saying it's expensive here? It's 4 liters to a gallon. Yeah. And I'm used to gallon prices.
Yeah.
And Americans complain about their gas all the time.
Yes.
They have it cheaper than most anybody else in the world.
True.
Other than Saudi Arabia.
James Halliday says the Dems and the Liberals in Canada have the same plan on communism.
Yeah, absolutely. But Canada's far further along, and they have conservatives fleeing. They're bringing in mass immigrants and creating a new voter bloc. I think this is how it was supposed to work for most of the West, the way it's working in Canada. It's not working like that. People in the EU are starting to stand up. Even the UK is starting to stand up. Rupert Lowe, they actually have a candidate that is starting to speak for the people. And Donald Trump, as far as the United States go, went really threw a monkey wrench into it. But it seems like Canada pulled off what all these Western countries were supposed to pull off, bring another demographic of mass immigrants in to vote for these progressive policies.
James Halliday says, dude, I live in northern Alberta and run a diesel truck. I was paying $2.40 a liter for a while. Yeah. Oh, now I remember. Yeah, my Mini used to take 94, because Pete says most premium is 91. Some stations sell 94. The bike loves it. Yeah. I remember.
And I used to love having my motorcycle because it's so cheap even to fill the I had a big tank.
Mini.
I had a big tank on my motorcycle and it was cheap. $20 is way cheaper than $100 for the Mini.
I used to pay 80.
80 still a lot.
In Vancouver.
80 you feel it in your wallet.
80.
Yeah, you feel it in your wallet for an $80
Yeah, but
hit.
it lasts for what, 3 weeks?
A motorcycle will last the whole month as well.
Okay. Ken Pangelli says, you said Kananax is perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
I'm still struggling. Philip Vespa, hello, says Derek has a great experience debating, and I agree with you, Guy, about his debate style. He knows the ins and outs of running a campaign.
Yeah, absolutely the best debater. I was glad some of the audience can clue me on a little bit more of his history outside of the Western Standard. He used to be a politician and things like that. He is the best debater we have. We need to put him in more debates. Jason Kinney seems to be willing to debate. We should get him a debate with Derek. I don't know if he'll do it, but I will say one thing about Derek that I do disagree with, and we're talking about Derek from the Western Standard, not Derek, the unacceptable fringe here. The one thing I do kind of disagree with him is he likes the Westminster system, and I do not want to go back to that, but he still knows how to represent Alberta independence extremely well. It seems like the two individuals that really support that Westminster system that I'm against speak really well when it comes to Alberta independence, giving speeches, making shorts. So
Yes. And Philip Vespa says Bill Maher is both refreshing and frustrating because he knows that leftist policies are extreme, but still supports Democrats any chance he gets. Yes.
But it is a way to reach across the aisle, and he does go to see Trump, and he talks to Trump now. So
yeah, I made a huge error washing towels the other day, and there's our whole house, our whole selves are full of fluff because I think I washed one of those fluffy blankets and I dried it with the rest of the towels, so they're all covered in fluff. So now I feel fluff all over my face and I keep having to sneeze. So if I sneeze, apology.
Well, I was in the shower and then I got out and I realized, I have no towel. I had my phone, so I'm video messaging Nat to come give me a towel. She gives me a towel. I mean, it is just filled with fluff. It's going in my eyes, ears, hair. It took me longer to clean myself from the towel than the original shower.
Same. It's all over my hair, and again, I think it's up in my nose. Nick Lan, hello, says China just opened and got fully operational, the world's largest oil refinery. It took them 19 months to build it from the time it was announced. It took them 6 months to get it in full production. Says we don't need a hand anymore. Power to the American oligarchs. They're the ones putting the strings here now, and have been my whole 65 years I've been alive.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting what happens.
I don't know how much I would trust that refining plant, though.
I would completely trust it. And I would also say this. I know the way you think about China and the way I think about China are a bit different. We both don't like China. But China gets a lot of technology and things like that from Russia, from their other allies like Iran and stuff like that. And as far as refining plants go, Russia has a lot of technological advancement. They're probably one of the most advanced countries in the world when it comes to oil refinement. Also, if they're trying to build a pipeline from Russia to China right now, and that's why they want these refining plants within China. They'll do the final refinement in China so they can buy the oil for cheaper. On top of that, if the Russians get Chinese workers to construct that pipeline, I think it is going to go extremely quickly. So it's going to be interesting what happens. Right now, they're shipping a lot of it by road and by rail into China. A pipeline would 10x the amount of oil they can get into that country.
Philip says, if I were a Carney supporter, I would be pissed that he capitulated to Trump, by the way, 2-1 England. Now, yes, thank you, Philip. It's still that way.
I watch a lot of liberal news, independent and mainstream, just to get an idea, and they're pitching this as a good thing, which is crazy. But the thing that's even more concerning is they're really trying to bring Danielle Smith back in the fold. Liberals are just loving Danielle Smith right now. Oh, these MOUs, these pipelines, we're becoming self-sufficient. I think conservatives within Alberta, especially within Alberta independents, know what she's signing away, and she's signing away our sovereignty. So much so that the Liberals are loving her. That should put out some red flags for most people.
Mm-hmm. But now let's actually go into Alberta Stay Free.
Yeah.
And let's start with the person on the cover. Derek Fildebrand says the Liberals need Alberta's money, the Conservatives need Alberta's votes.
Yeah, and what they put up here in the writing here, the Liberals need Alberta's money, the Conservative need Alberta's votes. That should be a campaign slogan for Alberta independence to wake the normies up. We showed a clip from Derek the other day. This is a different clip, but the main thing that he put here, I just absolutely love. Conservative needs our votes and Liberals need our money. It's very true, and it goes to the heart of the issue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing. The Liberals may need our money and the Conservatives may need our votes, but what Alberta needs is independence and freedom, and that's what October 19th is about.
They can't let us go. The Liberals need our money and the Conservatives need our votes at the end of the day. So, but there are things that can be done. I've spelled out some of it here. In fact, some, not all, some of the questions that'll be asked Albertans in a referendum alongside independence October 19th are of that nature, allowing more provincial appointments. Not just, this is unlike Quebec's asks constitutionally. Alberta's asks are for everyone. It's not about special treatment. It's about treating us all the same. That's fundamentally what it's about. It's about changing judicial appointments to give the province.
And that's one of the big things here. If Alberta was asking for specialty things, I think Carney would actually give it to them, just like they like giving Quebec things. But when they're asking for universal things across the board for all of Western Canada, that permanently hurts Ottawa and the Laurentian elite. So they're not going to do it. And it's very obvious at this point.
Is more power over our own upper courts in our own provinces. It talks about the Senate. I think it's the wrong answer. I actually think we need a reformed Senate. It can be on the American, the Australian, or the German models. Any one of those are a wild improvement over the medieval system that we have here. It talks about market access, strengthening our freedoms. That would be a gigantic start, And I'd be willing to, if Albertans voted for all of those, and the rest of the country took us up in good faith on that, I'd be willing to change my name to Ottawa. I will change sides, and I will campaign on the Federalist side if they took us up on it. But they never will. We had the Reform Party for the West once in. We had our equalization referendum in 2021, and it was crickets. There is just no prospect of this happening. And I, for one, am not going to be bought off with potentially one pipeline. And I'm not going to be bought off anymore as well by well-meaning conservatives who are willing to treat us perhaps with a bit more respect and act like we deserve to have a seat at the table, but won't do anything that'll cost them a vote out east.
And that's the big problem. And I think Danielle Smith definitely has her sights set on Ottawa at this point. And I think she's hoping Doug Ford can oust Danielle Smith and then she can oust Doug Ford. Mm-hmm. Also, she's signing all the sovereignty away and all the leverage Alberta would traditionally have in these MOUs, whether it's agreeing to pay a cost to transport oil through British Columbia. That's absolutely ridiculous. Also, paying a retroactive cost on former pipelines.
Mm-hmm. But next, Wexit Peep says, this is the $3,269 check Alaska mailed every man, woman, and child in the state, not a tax refund, a dividend from their resource fund protected in their constitution, which they wrote, own, and can amend. Alberta ships out $1 trillion in resources and gets it built from Ottawa. Alaskans voted for this. What are you waiting for, Alberta? October 19th, vote second option, start the process to independence.
Yeah, and leave the picture up there for a minute. And again, this isn't some kind of payoff from the American government. This is a divot in check from their natural resources. Donald Trump is starting to open up their natural resources as well. So you can only expect this check to get bigger and bigger and bigger. When we say no taxes in Alberta, we should be saying a divot in check for every single Albertan for what's lying underneath their feet.
Exactly. And by voting, you have the opportunity to actually write that into a new constitution and a new way of governing yourselves.
And this is a way that we get infrastructure built and we make sure the citizens are taken care of and that we're putting citizens first, not mass immigrants first.
But next, Freedom Honey says, rules for the even now for me. And shout out to Mike Freedom Honey. Go follow him if you don't. Says, meanwhile, Elections Alberta would have you believe that he's not campaigning for a referendum outcome, but therefore doesn't have to submit his third-party advertiser reports and declare his funding.
Yeah, and it's more about what Mike kind of said here. And we're going to have a secondary clip to kind of go into that goes more into that. But it's absolutely ridiculous that Forever Canada doesn't have to show where they're getting their donations. That sounds like foreign interference to me. And we need to keep calling Elections Alberta until they do something about this. Now, there's been a couple examples where they have done something about it. So all we can do is keep doing the right thing, keep calling Elections Alberta, and keep pointing out we want to see their finances.
Now, just because they're proud Canadians is not enough. Voter turnout will be key in this referendum. So part of our campaign, and there are several other campaigns in Alberta, is to make sure that the voter turnout is high. Because, you know, we can learn lessons from Brexit. What happens when people sit on their hands, assume that they're going to win, and then not vote. So getting the vote out is a priority.
Yeah, and we already know the voter turnout is going to be high on the independent side. People are already motivated to make it out. I'm expecting 90 to 95% turnout. I'm expecting people to take days off work. But on top of that, what we should really start organizing, I would say start it now, is make sure we have a ability to have ride sharing or free ride pickups to bring people to election stations. Because the only thing that may stop somebody to vote for independence is to have a ride to a polling station. Why? Because most people in independence actually live rurally, where most people for the Forever Canada side live in cities, and in cities, voting stations are a dime a dozen.
And as you mentioned, next, John Tonkinson says, meanwhile, Lukasik tells mainstream media he doesn't need to financially report, required as a third-party advertiser, and media says he doesn't get out of province funding after he actively solicited it. Forever Canadian is apparently forever corrupt, which is basically means the same thing.
Yeah, and this is a much better clip than the one we just showed, but this kind of explains what's going on here.
The province's most visible Federalist campaign, the ones behind these Forever Canadian signs, has not yet disclosed how much money they've raised.
Can you rewind it just a little bit, please? And you can see there it says choose unity. That seems like they're campaigning on a question.
The ones behind these Forever Canadian signs has not yet disclosed how much money they've raised.
Elections Alberta doesn't require a Forever Canadian to declare our fundraising because we're not campaigning on the referendum question.
Thomas Lukasik's group says it will make...
Choose Unity is campaigning on a referendum question without a doubt. That is the first question on the ballot.
Fundraising. Because we're not campaigning on the referendum question.
Thomas Lukasik's group says it will make its financials public as a non-profit at a later date and will not accept funds from those outside the province. The province's most visible...
At a later date, my ass, and if they're not required to show where their funds are coming from, that means there potentially will be no audit. So he can just put in false numbers. We got to make sure that he's held accountable by Elections Alberta.
Yes. I was going to say something. Oh, watch our X for a parody on some of those signs for the coming week. And I was trying to, because you didn't put it up, I was trying to find the poster for the telethon. So, because it's going to be happening next week. So while I find it, just talk.
No, let's just keep going and we'll bring it up a little bit later.
Okay, fine. So
there is going to be a telethon next Saturday. What's the date on that? The 18th.
The 18th, Saturday the 18th from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Organized by John Bolton, but with about 10 different YouTubers and YouTube channels also broadcasting the same thing with interviews to raise money for the third-party advertisers that are on the side of independence.
Yeah, the major 6 third-party advertisers like Jason Levine, like Keith Wilson, things like this. So it should be a big day for Alberta independence, especially on YouTube.
Yes. I was trying to find it. Okay, let's go back to your comments. Where were we? Chris Calgary, hello, says, aim high, vote low. Rupert is the man.
Yeah, Rupert Lowe is definitely the man within the UK. And I think he's going to start, you're going to see that party really start to grow beyond what Reform UK is. Reform UK was, I think, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Rupert Lowe is a former farmer, and he's just trying to get regular citizens that are honest and transparent to step up and run in his party, which I like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Pete, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying start of extra time number 2-1 England. England's still winning. Thank you for the updates. You don't have to super chat. It's fine, but thank you so much. Chris Calgary says it's embarrassing how Canada can't get anything done due to our restrictive liberal governments at every level. But again, not surprising, because that's what ends up happening when you have this level of restrictions and of government imposition over everybody's lives all the time. Chris Calgary says Danielle is a lying hypocrite. I'm buying my entire family memberships to vote her out next election. She cannot be trusted. Self-serving federalists. Yes.
Yeah, we need to make this absolutely clear. I'm seeing a lot of people within Alberta Independence that are getting access to Danielle Smith and things like that, really trying to pump her up, defend her at every chance they're getting. Everybody within the UCP at the Stampede are really just pumping Danielle Smith up. The Liberals are loving her. I mean, on the amount of independent Liberal channels on YouTube, as well as the mainstream media, they are just embracing her right now.
It's what's her face embracing her? What's her name?
I was just watching that today, Jen from The Line.
That one, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. They're loving everything she does. And I said this right from the beginning, she is the pivotal figure that is going to make or break Alberta independence after the non-binding referendum. We either choose to get her out, and we're going to get somebody in there that will make sure a binding referendum takes place in quick order, or we're really signing the future away. It's going to take 2.5 to 3 years. Now she's saying, oh, it will happen by the spring, but she also named a bunch of different mechanisms that would slow that down. And she also said she has to get approval from the federal government to see what percentage is actually a majority, because she says it's not 50+1, which is absolutely ridiculous.
And Stephen Jensen says, all of Russia's refineries are being decimated by Ukraine now. They are short on refined fuels. They can only sell crude at this point in time.
Yeah, I disagree with that. And I watch probably an hour to 2 hours now. I used to watch 4 hours a day of Ukraine-Russia coverage. I don't talk about it a lot. The Ukraine, because there was going to be a big meeting with the United States, and they wanted to try to get Trump to re-engage in the war. They pulled off strategic drone strikes, but they blew it way out of proportion because they were only able to get a couple days. So, and if you look at how much refining capacity was actually hindered by that, it was very little. I know the Western media likes to say something else. I watch both Western media, Eastern media, and people in between. And you see a lot of the Western media, actually the independent Western media, have changed their tune over the last 4 years. And that was kind of the indication that Russia has been winning this war for a long time.
Yes. And we do appear to have, sorry, I have to go twist it. We do appear to have either a troll or somebody that just can type really fast. But Nicolan, last comment I'm going to read from you, says, it's amazing what a payment to Donald Trump can do to obstruct a deal done by the state of Michigan and the federal government of Canada.
Oh, read that again. Sorry.
It's amazing what a payment to Donald Trump can do to obstruct a deal done by the state of Michigan and the federal government of Canada. This person seems to think that
this is a trade war that Mark Carney is trying to pick with Donald Trump. Of course he's going to go after the bridge.
Nick then also says, we don't have any pipelines that go through to the United States. Who blocked those? The Americans do. Who the F is telling you this be?
We have a bunch of pipelines that go down to the United States. What the hell are you talking about? Maybe we can just bring a map up on that. Next episode, I'm going to bring a map on where all the Canadian pipelines actually go. They go from Alberta, usually into Saskatchewan, and then they go down into the United States and then back up into Canada. The United States has the complete ability to turn off oil to Eastern Canada, not to Western Canada, but to Eastern Canada. And Eastern Canada is the one picking the fight with Donald Trump. We've seen the one province that wasn't picking the fight, which was Alberta, recently get the largest contract in Canadian history with a $13 billion private investment from Facebook and the data center.
Chris Calgary says, I actually have no faith in Canadian voters, the most uninformed sheep. We saw this during the Jimmy Jab era cowards.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that. I made a post of it. I like Berta Proud Dad, but he was talking about using direct democracy in Canada, and I think that's an absolute horrible idea because Canadians are so brainwashed. If you give them direct democracy, they're going to vote for communism.
Especially now that most of the common sense people already left because they saw what was coming.
Yeah, and we're very lucky we didn't have direct democracy during the Jibby Jab era because the government would have used that as a mandate from the people to be even more authoritarian than they already were. Now, I'm not saying direct democracy can't work. I'm just saying in a place like Canada, where most conservatives are fleeing and all you're left with is ideological liberal voters, at least in mass, that's not somewhere you want direct democracy.
I mean, the entire place is sucked dry of any kind of common sense or critical thinking, and it has been done on purpose over the decades by the educational system as well as by the governments that take advantage of having an uneducated populace who thinks is very educated.
Well, and another thing, a lot of people want to brag about how Alberta's bringing direct democracy here, and we're voting on things. We're voting on things, and then nothing's changing. We voted for no more remittance payments to the East, and then what happened? Crickets. We're using direct. Even when we use direct democracy, a good vote from the people, the politicians do nothing about it. So it's not really direct democracy. It's just something so the people have their feelings heard and they don't revolt.
Chris Calgary says, I emailed and called Elections Alberta and Elections Canada. I'm sick of rules for the BS. And unfortunately, those that are even in those positions are still playing with the rules for me, but not for thee. But rules for thee, but not for me.
And there's not another big third-party organizer outside of Forever Canada. There's a couple. The one raised $26,000, but even they're not doing that good. And they're saying it's really hard to get donations because they're doing it a lot more honestly, I think. I think Forever Canada is directly connected probably to federal governments, NGOs, and things like that. And that's why they do not want to show where they're getting their money from, because if they had to, we could claim foreign interference, which they keep claiming against Alberta independence, which is absolutely not the case.
In your opinion. Pete says, my English friend Chris flew home for his mom's 70th birthday. He's in a pub watching, so I gotta go for England. Again, I'm divided. Essentially, I'm glad if either of them win. Kind of would love for Norway to actually make it through because it's a little team.
Well, I would say when we were watching Mexico play England, there was some pre-game stuff, and a lot of English fans here in Mexico City were watching the game in English pubs. At the one English pub, the food looked great, and I keep telling you, I want to go to the English pub now.
Because it's really hard, for example, to find good fish and chips here in Mexico City or any kind of that sort of food. Now I got to skip over all the trolls' messages. Thank you, Philip, for trying to deal with it, but now he's been put in a timeout, and tomorrow if he continues, Monday if he continues, he'll be put on just blocking. And Yazinski, hello, and thank you for being here, says, yes, keep calling and emailing Elections Alberta. And again, I mean, that is one mechanism, sadly, one of the few mechanisms that we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try to counteract this. Maisel Toad, hello, says, quote, we have a campaign bus and campaign signs and campaign rallies, but it's not a campaign. LOL. Exactly.
Well, and even the signs say, choose unity. Like that is the question. Oh God, you keep going with the questions. I'm gonna go look for some information right now.
Okay. Walk in Campbell's cat says, tell Nick Land to go watch Golden Girls. Well, I kind of did. Not banned just as of yet, because again, we do respect free speech, but if it's just a troll, and it seems like maybe even a bot, because he was typing way too fast to be an actual human, he'll be permanently banned as well. Pete says, Keith Wilson's last video went to the sacrifices attached to this new pipeline to Vancouver, utter BS. The sacrifices attached to this new pipeline to Vancouver, utter BS. And again, if we actually look into what is being agreed upon and what is going to be used, then I'm pretty sure they're already starting to use it as, well, you wanted a pipeline, you wanted us to fix the economic situation, well, here it is, we did it. Oh, look, Ottawa is giving us a pipeline. Oh, look, Ottawa is actually doing X, Y, Z, also to do with the MOU, but it don't tell you that the MOU, for example, comes with a backlog of things that also affect pipelines that are already built.
Well, yeah, and the first question on the referendum is Alberta should remain a province in Canada, and on his sign it says choose unity. That would mean vote yes. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Exactly. Oh, I can't. Oh, I found it. Hold on. Yes. Let me just bring up the telethon poster. There we go. So this is from John Alberta Patriot, but it is being organized by a bunch of different people. One of them specifically, Joan Bolton. And yes, it is a telethon for independence, Saturday, July 18th. So next Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. streamed live on 10 YouTube channels, Facebook and X. There will be a lot of special guests and interviews with a lot of the people that are behind these third-party advertisers. And also, it'll be taking place in a bunch of different channels, us being one of them. So come meet us here, there. And there's also in-person live events happening. For example, at Paul's Pizza, there will be a segment of people that will be there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a 4 o'clock time slot. So
yes. But now let's actually get into Alberta politics, and then we'll continue reading your comments. Now without the troll.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And speaking of, let's start with Alberta Proud Dad asking, what if Canadians had the final say on the biggest decisions facing our country? If Ottawa wants to spend billions overseas, make major immigration changes, pass censorship laws, or fund massive taxpayer projects, should Canadians vote through a referendum? Daniel Smith has embraced direct democracy in Alberta. Should Canada do the same? The problem is, most of Canada would vote yes for most of those things anyways.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, if you, in Alberta, you have a critical mass of people where if you use direct democracy, you'll probably get a conservative answer, but the federal government doesn't take action on that. The problem here is if you give direct democracy to the rest of Canada, they're going to march Canada right into communism. And as soon as they get the vote that they want, they'll take action on it absolutely immediately. Bruce Party goes very much in depth why direct democracy will not work good in Canada, and we should not go towards it. I used to be a much bigger proponent of direct democracy till I started doing some real research about it.
Alberta Politics could reshape Canadian politics if Mark Carney actually listened to Danielle Smith. She has shown that direct democracy can give ordinary people a real say on the issues that affect their lives. So why not bring that idea to the federal level? Why shouldn't Canadians get a referendum before Ottawa sends billions overseas? Why shouldn't we vote on major immigration changes that affect housing, healthcare, schools, and wages? Why shouldn't Canadians have the final say on censorship bills that could limit what people can say or see online?
And again, it's not like that is not a desirable thing to be able to vote on those things and to be able to at least be asked or have a debate about it as the citizenry. But when you have left your citizenry so uneducated politically and so naive about what's actually going on in the country, it's too late to actually be proposing.
It's not even that they're uneducated. They're completely indoctrinated, and you don't have the mechanisms to actually educate them. And then on top of that, the questions he's suggesting sound nice, but if you offer direct democracy, what other questions is the government going to want on there? And they're going to be the ones that phrase a lot of these questions. This would be exactly how you could get very authoritarian mandates from the federal government. During the Jibby Jab era, if they had direct democracy in Canada, I don't like the way I think they would have voted. Now, a lot of other countries might not have voted that way, but Canada is a highly compliant and a highly indoctrinated society.
When governments want to spend tens of billions on massive projects, why are taxpayers only consulted after the money is already committed? This is not about left versus right. It is about reminding every politician, including Mark Carney, that they work for us. Put the question to the people. Let Canadians hear the facts, debate the issue, and vote yes or no. Danielle Smith understands that. Referendums can enforce governments to listen instead of simply telling citizens what is best for them. Every Canadian should support that principle because democracy should be more than voting once every 4 years and then watching politicians do.
And I like Alberta Proud Dad a lot. I just happen to disagree with him on this particular issue, especially in a country like Canada. I don't think we would like the results of a national direct democracy at all. Liberals would be voting for a lot of things that Mark Carney wants, but he has trouble getting in. Now that he has a majority government, it's going to be a lot easier for him to get in, I think.
And we also, do you want me to keep playing it or no?
No, that's pretty good.
And we also know, like, for example, here in Mexico, we do have the mechanism of referendums and asking the people on a left populist tending towards socialistic, communistic ideals figurehead with AMLO. What he used to do was he used to do a lot of citizen referendums, essentially paying off the people that he wanted to go vote, and the only people interested were his supporters. So he would end up with a really favorable result. For example, canceling a massive project to improve one of our airports and have a way better airport than we have. And he got that canceled through a popular vote by essentially manipulating the way that that vote works.
Yeah,
So not in every case do referendums in this way work as we would want them to.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Carney would actually agree with Britta Proud Dad on this particular issue. Why? Because he's now brought in all the mechanisms of censorship, or almost. Once he completes all the mechanisms of censorship and controlling the mainstream media and a lot of the independent media, direct democracy would highly favor Mark Carney in his agenda, because he's going to control the means of education of the public.
And Yasinski, thank you so much for the $10 super chat, saying you two are one of the highlights of my day. I appreciate you watching you live. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate you being here. And also, again, continuing to have the discussions and the debates and being able to read what all of you are thinking as well. But thank you so much. And next?
Yeah, let's go into the next chapter here.
Next, Kian Bexley says, quote, the CBC cares more about racism than actual violence. Because, again, they've equated words are violence with actual violence. And to them, there is no more differential anymore.
A white guy yelling racist things at Costco in Halifax is national news. A machete attack in Victoria isn't. It's not that complicated. Yes, there were 2 people severely injured in the machete attack in Victoria. No one appears to have been injured in the Costco incident in Halifax. However, he did say some pretty awful racist things, and as we know, sometimes words can feel like a machete attack. And you might be saying to yourself, I actually think both of these stories are pretty important. Why couldn't the CBC cover both? CBC only has so much space on their website to be able to cover the news, so they have to pick and choose the stories that they're going to run. So they didn't have time to cover this machete attack in Victoria because they had to post about this Costco incident 3 different times.
Yeah, and I kind of put that along with the last article, because the last article was about direct democracy. And with all these new mechanisms coming in, it's not just going to be the mainstream media. The Canadian government's going to control more and more of the algorithm if these social media companies want to do business inside of Canada. So although you will get the alternative story is out there, it's going to be much harder to get, and the mainstream story is always going to get through. This is why direct democracy in a place like Canada specifically is not a good idea. And somebody that really influenced me in my way was Bruce Party. And if you don't know a lot about direct democracy, go watch some of Bruce Party's content, because he does a fantastic job talking about the pitfalls of direct democracy. It's not as good as it always sounds right off of the surface.
Exactly. But next, Rebel News says, quote, we're launching a campus organization inspired by Charlie Kirk.
And this was a fantastic little story. I'm very impressed with Rebel News here. This is exactly what Canada needs. And there's going to be pushback from campuses. They're going to say it's hate speech and everything else. And this will expose the federal government. So I'm glad to see Rebel News is doing this.
Yeah. A few months before Charlie Kirk was shot dead on a university campus, I had a long conversation with him, almost an hour.
I think we can let Ezra explain it here, maybe.
Oh my God, I'm announcing something big. It's very exciting. The Democracy Fund is launching Canadian Students for Free Speech, a national network of free speech clubs on university and college campuses right across the country. I want to tell you why and how you can be part of it. For years, our universities have been hostile territory for any student who's conservative or traditional or just willing to ask the wrong question. They self-censor. They sit down and shut up these days. They face the mob alone, because right now our side has no one on the inside. That ends today. We're putting student-led, officially recognized free speech clubs on campuses.
And pause it. And this is the important thing to infiltrate into universities. It's student-led, meaning if individuals go into a lot of Canadian campuses, they're going to say they're trespassing and they're going to kick them off immediately. That's why you don't have people like Billboard Chris on Canadian campuses. And these are the people that we want to reach. So if it's student-led, it's really hard for them to ban it here.
One time in Vancouver, I went with Billboard Chris to UBC. We lasted about 10 minutes before we were told we had to be outside of the university perimeter.
UBC to Dalhousie. And we're backing these students with everything the Democracy Fund has. There are 3 ways you can help, and I'll give you the details in a moment, but here they are. First, you can donate to the Democracy Fund to fund it. And because the Democracy Fund is a registered charity, you get a tax receipt. If you're a student, help us start a club or report campus censorship at studentsforfreespeech.ca. And if you want a full-time job...
And I'll say one more thing. If you are a student and you're thinking about doing this, please do it. I know it's a risk. I know some universities may kick students out for doing certain things like this, but we're going to need students to stand up if Canada wants to have any hope for the next generation, especially with the amount of censorship and regulation speech laws that are coming into Canada.
I really like this initiative and this idea. Unfortunately, at least personally, I think it's a little bit too late for it to actually work, number one, and for universities to actually respect the fact that students do want to have those debates, because it's become, and now with the new laws being implemented within Canada, all of Canada itself, I don't know how much more of a free speech debate
and I think you're absolutely wrong about this, just because of the way you're looking at it. And this is the same thing why I say we need to absolutely replace Danielle Smith and have a leadership review on her. It's not about it's too late. What it's about is exposing the federal government and these universities for what they are. So if they kick students out or they go after the individuals that are creating these clubs, it exposes them and it wakes more people up. The same thing with Danielle Smith. If we can replace her with somebody that's actually going to take sovereignty back for Alberta, for instance, taking the CCP fund and putting it in Alberta banks. You might not be successful at that initiative, but having the federal government stop it in a very public way educates people in real time.
Leading this thing nationwide, we are hiring right now. So apply at that same website to become the National Campus Coordinator of Canadian Students for Free Speech. Now, let me tell you why this matters so much. A few months before Charlie Kirk was murdered on a university campus, he and I talked for almost an hour.
Okay, and you can leave it there. I highly recommend everybody kind of go support that, or at least go watch the full video so we kind of know what's going on, because I expect a lot of pushback from universities as well as the federal government. But that's exactly what we want, because it's Rebel News doing this. Even if the project itself isn't successful, but there's a ton of pushback, we're going to report on every single incident, which again will open people's eyes, I think.
But again, my question is, why weren't we doing this 5, 10 years ago when we saw the creep and when we saw the chilling effect and when we saw all of this start? Why did we wait until it was almost now impossible, now with the new laws that have been implemented regarding free speech and hate speech and etc., when it's a lot more dangerous for us to do this?
Well, I'll say one more.
And there's a lot more mechanisms to be able to control the speech and actually censor it and stop it.
I'll say one more thing here. I think now's the perfect time to do this. And why is it the perfect time? Because I'm all for Alberta independence. I think Canada is already cooked. And if they do this across Canada and try to stifle free speech on university campuses, this is only going to help Alberta independence in a very big way. Yeah, it might not work, but it will get a lot of people waking up and realizing if we can't even speak in the rest of Canada, maybe independence is the only way forward.
But again, how many more people can wake up that haven't already left? What we were just saying a second
There's
ago.
a lot of people in Alberta that are waiting for this vote. Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of pitching this idea. He's going across all of Canada, but things that happen across all of Canada definitely influence a lot of voters within Alberta.
Pete, thank you so much for the $2 super chat and for letting me know the final marker. England takes it. Go Argentina. Well, I'm glad for England. Way to go, England. I mean, at least Mexico lost to now a semi-finalist. So there we go. Stephen Jensen says, I've managed to get 2 4x8 signs given out today to be displayed on 2 very busy highways. Great.
And our flag should be coming in the next few days. It says it's supposed to arrive. So,
and Walking Campbell's cat says the sheep may be indoctrinated, but really they are all just stupid. Kind of agree with that. Rage Against Machine says, right on, Steve. Well done. Yes, and right on. And Steve Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat saying, I can see some serious lawsuits happening. This will expose a rot in universities. Hopefully, but again, we've also already seen attempts at lawsuits regarding other kinds of free speech or other mechanisms that have already been implemented, be it by provincial governments, local governments, or the federal government itself. And those usually fail because, again, they end up before the
Human Rights Council.
The Human Rights Tribunal, yeah.
Yeah, but it's, and you have to realize with a lot of this stuff, it's not about actually winning. Sometimes you lose and you get a win out of that, especially when there's a simultaneous movement going on like Alberta independence. The more the government pushes back on a lot of these freedom movements or freedom causes nationwide, the more it will affect Alberta independence, and it will really push, I think, a lot of moderates over to the independent side.
Hopefully. And again, I'm glad it's happening. It's just frustrating to think, where was this 5-10 years ago? when we were already seeing that this was happening. Jordan Peterson happened in 16, 17, so 10 years ago now, when we were seeing what was happening in universities.
Yeah,
and yet
it's absolutely fine that it's happening now. I'm glad that it is happening now.
No, I said I'm glad it's happening.
Yeah.
Now it's just frustrating to think this could have been organized a while ago. Okay, now let's go to, where are we? Alberta Politics?
Yeah.
No, we were in Alberta. Alberta Personalities. There we go.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to people.
Let's start with, oh great, PP. Pierre Poilievre says, bucks to burgers, how they stole your lunch money.
Yeah, and absolutely fantastic. We still have somebody on the opposition side, even though he's not in favor of Alberta independence, that at least is pointing out all the mistakes of the Mark Carney economy and what the federal government is doing. If they manage to replace him with a Doug Ford, it is not going to be a benefit for Alberta independence. That being said, nobody's waiting 3 years to vote harder for Pierre Poilievre because conservatives are leaving Canada en masse. I don't even know if Poilievre is an option at this point. There is not enough conservatives left in Canada. There are enough conservatives within Alberta to vote for independence and make a real change and not be pushed out of your country, but take a part of your country with you.
One of these for one of these. Back when I was in junior high in the early 90s, my parents would give me $2 a day for lunch, and I'd come to this very DQ on Elbow Drive in Calgary and get a burger, sometimes even two, but not anymore. Government has since printed $2.4 trillion. That's an increase of dollars in bills, coins, and bank deposits of up to 600%, while the economy's only grown by 100% in the same 35-year period. So we're adding dollars 6 times faster than we add burgers. And guess what's happened to burger prices? Up 4-fold at this location alone. All that inflation is great news for the club of power brokers, lobbyists, and insiders. Their assets inflate, and the government gives them the printed money in bailouts, handouts, and carve-outs. The Liberal Club stole your money. If you're ready to take it back, hit share for Affordable Canada.
Yeah, and I thought this was a fantastic video. And I will say I watch a lot of liberal media, like I said earlier, and they absolutely hate this video. They're always talking about how Poilievre needs to be ousted because he's creating division within Canada and we need to stand together. And they're pointing out this specific video as that. If they're talking about it on the liberal side, he triggered them. This is a good thing. And he just looks like an average guy. And I remember when I used to pay $1 for a burger as well. So the average person can really relate to this and understand that the economy is absolutely out of control. It's even more out of control now that Mark Carney's in with his majority government.
True. And next, you apparently seem to keep beating a dead horse. What's the phrase?
Beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
But these memes are all over now, and I'm absolutely loving them. They're making me smile every single time. Oh, this was the wrong one.
No, that's the one you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, talking about actor Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page. Dr. Clown says, when you're a short woman struggling with a pickle jar and a man opens it with zero effort. And again, this goes to the fact that this person was chosen as an actor for The Odyssey in a role that clearly does not make any sense for this person to be playing.
Well, I think it had nothing to do with The Odyssey. I think it has more to do with respect her pronouns. She's got new pronouns, and that's Mr. Pickles here.
And again, it just goes to the ridiculousness of this whole gender ideology and the fact that no, man cannot become women and women cannot become men.
Yeah.
They just end up looking quite a bit ridiculous. In my opinion, at least. But okay, now let's go back to your comments. And thank you so much, Stephen Jensen, for the $5 super chat saying, oh, hold on. Provincial governments have control of the universities. They can override any anti-free speech doctrine if they wanted to. But do they want to?
Yeah, we would think so. I mean, Danielle Smith is supposed to be a real conservative there. What's happening with Alberta universities? Communist summer camp? I'm currently doing a lot more research on communist summer camp, and the main place it exists is within Alberta, which is absolutely ludicrous. That's supposed to be the most conservative province within Canada, and that's where they have a communist stronghold, and it's rooted there because of the universities, as well as we see free speech constantly being stifled on universities. When Danielle Smith's asked about it, she's mum on the word. She has nothing to say about it.
Well, she just says it's terrible, it's horrible, but no real action plan, really.
Yeah.
As of now. Pete says, when my son 12 years ago told me he was going to college instead of university, I celebrated. Now he's 29. He's absolutely killing it. Great. And great to hear as well. And again, I am I'm continuously skeptical about the usefulness of universities. Rage Against the Machine says the citizen who masters himself becomes harder to rule by fear and impossible to buy with comfort. Very true. Philip Vespa says, I don't care what PP has to say at this point. He's an enemy of independence. Enough said. Again, he helps us out by highlighting what's wrong with Canada. But yes, I mean, if anybody still has too much hope vested into Pierre Poilievre, I would say maybe spend your money elsewhere. And Yasinski says Pierre could come back to Alberta and help fight for independence. Any thoughts? Well, he said he wants to do the complete opposite. So, I mean, I guess it would be pretty hard to get him to that point. But, I mean, he would be useful. He's just decided to do the complete opposite in my opinion, in a vie for his own power.
Pierre Poilievre has no relevance. That being said, replacing a Pierre Poilievre with a Doug Ford, which is currently trying to happen behind the scenes with ousting a Pierre Poilievre, would not be good because Doug Ford isn't going to put any resistance. He's going to stand right in line with Mark Carney and not point the direction that Canada is going out to everybody. And we need people to point this out, people that conservatives generally listen to within Alberta, because those moderate conservatives in the middle that aren't quite going to vote for Alberta independence yet, we want them to realize the direction Canada is going.
Exactly. Pete says if Alberta gets this done, the result will move through Saskatchewan, the Yukon, and eventually BC. Canada will end somewhere around Manitoba.
Yeah, that's what we're really hoping.
Walking Campbell's Cat says these morons that want to unite Canada do not realize that almost half of Canada did not vote for Liberal BS. Exactly. And yet they think that that's the popular. So again, now it is because the people that didn't want it left.
Yeah, it is the popular thing because a lot of people were sticking around for Pierre Poilievre. When Pierre Poilievre didn't get in there, they still stuck around a little bit after that. But when Mark Carney stole the majority government and he secured that for the next 3 years, people are fleeing en masse. They were already fleeing before, 241,000 people a year. Mm-hmm. But now conservatives are really just hitting the road for either Mexico or the United States, primarily.
Mainly the U.S., yeah. Rage Against the Machine says if PP had any balls, he could be the first Prime Minister of Alberta. But he already proved to us that he doesn't.
Yeah. And I'll say again, it's not just the United States. A lot of older people are fleeing from Mexico because of the house prices and because the United States is very hard to immigrate to, especially under Donald Trump. So a lot of people are choosing Mexico.
Walking Campbell's Cat says that's right, but PP does not have the balls. No, I concur with that. KP for you, hello, and thank you for being here. Over on RUMBLE says, so how are we to just take his word that the money isn't being collected illegally when he doesn't have to show any receipts? That being Thomas Okasik with his forever Canadian non-third-party advertising.
He's already been shifty with his finances multiple times in the past now. So we need those numbers. The best thing we can do is just keep calling Elections Alberta.
But now, hold on. Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat saying Pierre's appearances appear to not be published with us. No, hold on. Pierre's appearances appear to not be published, so us with real questions can show up to ask him. Very true as well.
Yeah.
You never know where he's going to be.
And I will say the big fight for us, I don't believe is going to be October 19th. I think we have people that are motivated to go out to the polls. And because it's not a major federal election, a lot of people typically don't go out. Our side has a huge advantage, especially it's a non-binding. I think what is going to decide the future of Alberta independence is if we have the balls and the backbone to actually have a leadership with Danielle Smith after that non-binding referendum. That will decide how quickly we get a binding referendum or if we even get one.
Mm-hmm. And Steve Surfaro, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat asking, could Montana simply make a trade agreement directly with Alberta?
Yeah, I think you've asked that before, and not with Danielle Smith there. I'll say that. If somebody else was there, that would be an absolute fantastic idea. And this is one of those things I say, if we can get a leadership review on Danielle Smith and get somebody else in there that's going to demonstrate Alberta's sovereignty and cut direct deals with the U.S., that's going to force the federal government to try to take action against Alberta, and that's an education of the public in real time. We don't have to pay for that kind of advertisement. The federal government will push people over to independence for us.
True.
But we need a leader within the UCP that will do that.
And lastly, Pete asks me, I guess, says, okay, now time to show your cards, Argentina or Switzerland. Again, it's the last one left.
During rainy season, which is the summertime. So.
And we are looking into that, what's it called? The universal power supply, but still haven't been able to find one here that could ship or come to Mexico.
They have them, yeah. So it's just a matter of actually going to get one.
Finding one, yes. Rage Against Machine says, unfortunately, we're losing the best people and retaining the worst. And again, that's what Canada, I think, will end up being in the long term.
Yeah.
But now let's actually go to Alberta's Canada, as we were just about to head into that segment. But thank you so much again, Rage Against Machine, saying love you both, wish you great success, and have many children. Keep up the great work. You're appreciated. And again, all of you are appreciated because a live show wouldn't be a live show without all of you.
Well, and we're not going to get Alberta independence without every single person, especially on October 19th, making sure they get out to those polling stations. And if you don't have a ride, just call somebody. I'm sure we're going to organize a ride sharing campaign.
Exactly. Okay, now let's go to Alberta's Canada.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
Okay, let's start with this from Wealth Moose saying, quote, Canada added 18,000 jobs is today's celebrated headline. 17,000 of those were lost in manufacturing. The net effect, barely a rounding error, driven almost entirely by part-time work in bars and hotels for the World Cup, which is now over in Canada.
Yeah, you get 18,000 part-time seasonal jobs and you lose 17,000 good full-time manufacturing jobs. This is a net loss for Canada, but they try to keep selling it as a win. This is Mark Carney economics at its finest.
What's your biggest takeaway from the report that we saw this morning?
I'd say it's an illusion. It's an illusion of positivity, to be completely honest with you. I think there's probably two big bad ones in it for me. Number one, if our unemployment rate can go down, adding 18,000 jobs, that's a sign of a poor economy. So we don't love that, absolutely. And then secondly, when you look at the majority of the growth has come from part-time work, like that's a fallacy of security. Like we actually lost good quality full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So I don't think either of those things are anything that as a Canadian, generally you can be happy about.
Well, I was going to ask you about the part-time work because we were speaking with analysts earlier. Some say that a lot of that could be because of the World Cup, right? And being hosted here in Canada. But I don't know if you agree with that, but also if that's the case, would we not see a reversal down the line?
Yes. I mean, this is temporary. This is not, employment for the youth that's been finally secured. It's just employment for the youth that they're now waiting for real jobs. They're jobs, they're not careers. And, whilst you can still buy groceries with job and part-time income, that's not what people want to actually start their long-term, life. World Cup has played a positive for sure, but it's just generally the summer.
Yeah.
Look, you got retail work going up, accommodation, food services. They're still necessary to gain that experience, but not what we want our youth to do.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I think the Canadian government absolutely loves this idea of getting everybody into part-time work. This turns the idea of a renter-style economy, not just for rents, but for everything. And they want to eventually usher in a UBI. It's hard to usher a UBI when people have long-term secure jobs. They want people absolutely desperate.
But also in a way, being able to go, rah, yes, look at what we're doing, and being able to highlight it when it's happening. But again, as it said there, it's just temporary. It's just during the summer. But now they have this figure as the latest figure, and they can continue to talk about that until they have to report back on it again. And it's the way it's been going on for a few years now, where they also with government jobs, they say, we increased all these job numbers and unemployment is going down. Well, yes, because you opened up a bunch of different government jobs that you're now counting as fixing unemployment.
Well, and kind of talking, I guess, bringing the USMCA into this as well. Mexico and the United States are rehashing out the next stage of the USMCA, which will involve Mexico and the US. But a lot of manufacturing, like Toyota, is moving to the United States, or they're building additional manufacturing facilities. Why? Because Donald Trump is cutting major tax breaks, where if you're willing to build your manufacturing facility inside of 3 years rather than inside of 10 years, you can write 10 years of it off within the first 3. And this is why you see a lot of manufacturing moving back to the United States right now. I mean, this is with a country that has a good trade relation with the U.S. and is going to renew the USMCA. You still see some manufacturing leaving. In a place like Canada, I expect it to be completely hollowed out in the next couple of years.
And thank you so much, Anya Zinsky, for the $5 super chat, saying Edmonton had a portion of power outage yesterday from the strong storm. Same here, strong storm, but I guess we can now relate to Edmonton as well on that issue. Hopefully they got the power restored pretty quick.
Yeah,
as well.
but it's not. We lived in a couple different places since we moved here to Mexico City. The first place, man, it would go out and it wouldn't come back on.
Yeah.
Here, it goes out and it comes back on fairly quickly.
Right away. Yeah. I think because there's better generators.
Yeah.
Where we are now. But next, thank you so much again, Anya. Keep it next. RMC 86 says, count on Scott Reed to justify Carney's every action and broadcast maximum TDS to the liberal boomers. And again, those are the few people that are left that, number one, analyze what's going on. So they always analyze it on a positive level. But number two, that will continue to agree with what's happening because they're the ones that voted for this, and the ones that didn't already left.
Yeah, and I'm going to grab a clip. I grabbed a clip for tomorrow that talks about Animal Farm, and the Ghost of Evil is something that a lot of people like to run on, and this is exactly what Donald Trump is to Mark Carney. Even once Donald Trump is gone, he's going to continue to use them for this elbows up. Oh, it's all Donald Trump. He shifted everything. It's Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump. No, it's not Donald Trump, but the mainstream media, it keeps echoing that for him as well.
Look, this is the world in which we live. The United States has decided that it wants to become an unpredictable and unreliable partner to Canada. So economically, what do we have to do? We've got to go find other spots to fish in. And not all of them are going to be like-minded when it comes to value. So suddenly we're having to open up much more with China. We're dealing with India. We are dealing with Saudi Arabia. We're not necessarily going to like all the partners. We're not necessarily going to share values with all those partners. But
and there was Middle Eastern. No, we're going to play this whole thing. There was a bunch of Middle Eastern countries. We got $1 billion of investment. It was supposed to be $70 billion. And Mark Carney said, no, we don't have anything we can invest in right now. What he's trying to do is push investment out, even when it's offered up to the tune of $70 billion. Why? Because he wants to start taking over industries, especially natural resource industries within Canada. That's how you usher in communism in a capitalist society.
Economic necessity and the overweening desire to diversify our trade and our economic relationships was that Europe was lost. It was bullied and bowed by Donald Trump. Didn't know what to do. And they turned to Carney. It was his Davos speech and then the example that he offered and the advocacy that he pursued with all those European leaders that moved them in the direction they're now going. It essentially portrayed Mark Carney as the leader of the opposition to Donald Trump and this White House. Now he's got to sit in NATO meetings with Donald Trump. Now he's got to continue on trade talks with Donald Trump. Very delicate to have that kind of media coverage at the same time you're trying to engage in the United States. And I think for the Prime Minister's discretion is a better part of that.
The EU didn't know what to do, so they turned towards Mark Carney. And now then he says, oh, that's the direction they're now heading in. What are the two things they want to bail them out? They want communism through Canadian natural resources is one path that I potentially see, but the other one is they want war. And that's what they keep trying to turn the Ukraine-Russia thing into. They want to wait Donald Trump out so they can engage that war and then send their citizens off to die. So they stop recognizing the corruption of their own governments.
Right now, he is going to be tight-lipped for fear that anything he says is misinterpreted and sends the unpredictable, obviously very volatile Donald Trump off on a bender. As for Hoekstra, I mean, what can you say? This guy's a bull in a china shop. He doesn't even look for a china shop. He just charges around everywhere, yelling at Canada, complaining that we are being ungrateful. Now he's bellowing about premiers. He's the most undiplomatic diplomat I think we've ever seen.
And that's absolutely,
which is why he's effective.
That's absolutely ridiculous. I can understand if you say Trump's too frank for me, but the trade ambassador has been pretty frank and honest. But this is what politicians don't want. You really get a look into what America's thinking with Pete Hoekstra. Yeah. He's been absolutely fantastic. People might not like what he has to say, but he doesn't do it in a rude way, and he's very honest. But they don't want that honesty because they want to build their own narrative through the mainstream media, and they can't do that when the United States is saying exactly what they're thinking to the general public
on their own media.
Yeah,
but I will also say we're going to continue to see this weird compromising on things like, funnily enough, Carney even wrote a book on it, on their values and on Canada. Number one, some people wanting Canada to take up the LGBTQ fight for the world. And we did an article on that. And that, no, now this responsibility is going to fall on, and this funding responsibility is going to fall on Canada. At the same time, they're making deals and wanting to explain away that, our values are just not that compatible with Saudi Arabia, but that's better than having to continue to trade with the US and continue to be ungrateful about it.
Here's the thing. For the Liberals to stay in power, they're going to have to keep demonizing Trump. Even as different as Trump's values are to liberals in Canada, they're far more similar than Saudi Arabia or these other countries that Mark Carney is cutting deals with. So this is absolutely ridiculous. It's not that Donald Trump has a different set of values, because you're willing to align with people that have even a worse set of values in Saudi Arabia and other countries. Donald Trump represents the re-electability, or keeping your poll numbers strong with inside Canada and your elbows up. It's ridiculous. And we had Steve Safaro.
Steve Safaro, thanks so much for the $4.99 super chat, saying Trump manipulates transparently and succeeds. Carney manipulates continuously and fails. Exactly. And again, that's why they hate it, because they can't counteract something that they know deep down is actually what's going on. And they can't counter message, because then Hoekstra or Trump or somebody else comes out and says, no, this is actually what's going on, and being truthful about it. So if they go try to find backlog or something to dig up, they can't.
Well, they're having a tough time with this bridge deal as well. They quickly mention it. They don't go into details because Trump has already put out the messaging, and it's going to be hard to counteract. You're now splitting 50-50.
But lastly, lastly, Scott Robertson does quote Robert Fife on the latest round of conservative infighting, saying this party is falling apart before our very eyes.
And I keep talking about this because it's happening beneath the surface. A lot of people don't actually even know what's going on, but they're trying to oust Pierre Poilievre. They want to replace him for a Doug Ford or even possibly a Jason Kenney. It's Doug Ford and the Conservatives' main campaign manager that is trying to orchestrate a lot of this. They had a bunch of hit pieces that were supposed to come out that they put on pause because the rumors had kind of got exposed through conservative independent media. If they manage to pull this ousting off, Danielle Smith is definitely going to go straight for a Doug Ford or Jason Kenney, whoever manages to get in there.
You know, Corey Teneycke, Anthony Kosh, Ben Woodfinden. I know the falling out with Teneycke, but Kosh and Woodfinden, they worked for Poilievre in the past. They were on the Elliott campaign too, and they've gone public talking about the intellectual poverty of the Conservatives and, you know, lecturing the state of the party.
Well, look, I've been following Twitter or X now, as I'm sure all of you have, and lately I haven't really been all that interested in, because it's a cesspool of
Lately it's been a cesspool? No, only now.
You know, I mean, a few years it's been a real cesspool. But damn, it's interesting and fun.
And this is the line that liberals use in the United States. Oh, it's not interesting to go on X anymore. But if you look at the actual stats, when X was Twitter, it was 76% liberal, 24% conservative. Now that Musk owns it, it's actually almost a 50-50 split. It's one of the most fairest websites that's kind of out there, but they can't deal with a 50-50 split. They need majority control.
I mean, the Tories are throwing everything at each other. This party is falling apart before our very eyes, and they're delighted to spend time criticizing each other, smacking each other over the head. And it's not just over this issue. Yesterday, what's her first name for the Lewis?
Leslie Lewis and Michelle Rempel-Garner.
Came out criticizing the $13 billion AI investment in Alberta, which is, by the way, a huge big deal. And also electricity is, and it's a provincial deal, not a federal deal. And so Michelle Rempel-Garner, who is a Conservative MP, came out and attacked her. I mean, this whole thing is falling apart. Today, Conservatives are laughing at, if you haven't watched it, go on X and look at the Poilievre hamburger tweet, which is all about inflation. As hamburgers prices have gone up, what was it, 600% in 30 years? Really? And it's all the Liberals' fault, of course, right? But Conservatives themselves are laughing.
It is the Liberals' fault. I might not like Pierre Poilievre. I don't like Pierre Poilievre because he does not support Alberta independence, even though we have the same fundamental first principles. But the hamburger ad was good. They hate it because it points out and it speaks to the common man.
Yeah. And explains to the common man.
And looking at the Pierre Poilievre ads, doing something like that for Alberta independence, something similar, can give us different ideas as well.
Yeah. So I think that Mr. Poilievre is in very serious trouble. He's lost control of his caucus. His party is deeply divided. And I think he's just hanging on by his fingernails right now.
But again, I can't disagree that, yes, there is an issue right now internally within the Conservative Party, and it's almost pretty plain and clear to see. Number one, because most of their base is leaving or wants to fully take the province with them.
The split is... I think a lot of Conservatives actually support Poilievre other than Doug Ford and Jason Kenney. And they don't want to see another leader go in there. That's why if you do see a Jason Kenney or Doug Ford replace Poilievre, you're going to see a mass outcry for Danielle Smith to go in there and oust whoever took his spot. That's number one. Number two, the real split between the Conservative Party, I think, are between the citizens or the people and the actual higher ups. The higher ups say, if you want change, you have to do it through us. You have to vote harder and you have to wait 3 more years. And they want to make promises, but they can't deliver on those promises. The people say, we have the same first principles. We want change, but we're going to give it to us ourselves. And the elites don't like that.
But again, Alberta's independence is a big threat to the Conservative Party because that's essentially their entire base for 90 plus years.
Well, like Derek said earlier on, the Liberals need Alberta's money. The Conservative needs Alberta's vote. But what Alberta needs is freedom and independence. And that's what we'll be deciding on October 19th.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of the Conservatives and the nationalists on the Conservative side, the conversation has kind of moved on without them almost. Like the Liberals will continue to do whatever they want. They have the majority. They continue to pass insane bills and not listen to anything the Conservatives try to bring up, House, Parliament, wherever, the Senate, etc. And then on the other side is Alberta fighting for its independence, which also left the Conservative Party and said, we're not going to continue to wait for you forever, and you haven't really done much for us or even put in a decent modicum of an effort to get elected and to actually get voted in.
Well, I've been listening to what's been going on at the Stampede from a Liberal perspective, from a Conservative perspective, from all these different perspectives. And what they're saying is everybody is just praising Danielle Smith. And I've been watching a lot of interviews, and that's all it is. Danielle Smith, $13 billion investments. Danielle Smith signing MOUs. She's signing our sovereignty away. Citizens, I think, can see that. But what they're also saying is nobody wants to talk about independence. They just know to be quiet about it. They want to act like it's not existing right now. It exists, and I think they're going to be real surprised, and they don't know how to address it. And that's why they don't want to bring it up. That's why they want to avoid it, and that's why they want to heap praise on Danielle Smith, because if they can keep the focus on Danielle Smith, they don't have to address the elephant in the room, which is real change coming from the citizens.
But also ironic, isn't it? Because they haven't wanted to address the issues that are leading to independence for forever, for 90 plus years since Alberta exists. So it's just like a continuation of it.
Well, they say they're addressing the issues now through Danielle Smith, but anybody that knows what she's actually doing and reads into the MOUs, she's doing the exact opposite. She's helping with federalization. She's basically, Mark Carney and Danielle Smith might as well be married. They're holding hands so much. She's literally signing Alberta's sovereignty and future away.
But now we'll go back to your comments, and then we'll go into Alberta and the world, then to our UMBLE, and then I'll go watch Argentina. Pete says, unfortunately, international trade is a purvey of Ottawa, which is why we need out. Answering Steve Safaro's question. Oh, no. Sean's question, asking if Alberta could trade with Montana all by itself.
Read that again.
Unfortunately, international trade is a purvey, or it's concerned, Ottawa's concerned with that, which is why we need out. Yeah.
I wasn't sure on the question either, but even though it's their purview, if we had a leader on there that would just kind of force the issue, it would bring talk up into the federal conversation and say, well, why don't we as provinces have the ability to do this?
Because they don't even have the ability to trade amongst themselves.
Yeah.
It's even harder to trade amongst themselves than to internationally trade outside of the province. Steve Zafaro said they really deserve their own news network. Oh, and I think that was a response to Ann Yazinski about us. Believe us, we have too many mistakes to be so, but thank you so much for the trust you put in us and the faith you put in us as well. And I think being, human beings is what people like now.
We're still learning to make content. I can't even get the microphones to work.
And I can't apparently edit.
For the live show I can, but I'm trying to do some shorts next week and I'm having all kinds of technical issues.
Apparently, I can't even edit a short now because I forgot how to do that. Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying, is the MOU available online for us to read?
I don't know. I can't remember how I found that. Yeah, I found it somewhere online, I thought.
Okay.
Or somebody was, there was an art.
Do you want me to look it up?
No, it's fine. I'll look it up for the next episode and bring it to everybody.
Steve Zavaro says, fictional publishing of job creation is a Democrats' hallmark. Example, Biden economy growing government jobs.
Yeah.
And Rage Against Machine, thank you so much for becoming a monthly member. It really helps us out as well. So thank you so much. And yes, exactly. But that has been a mechanism forever of being able to lie or print money or make up jobs.
Yeah, but this is the issue that we're having now. The same thing they did with science is they captured academia And you can't trust numbers or statistics that are coming out of there. They're completely manipulated. And the same thing is happening with job numbers and a lot of other things. People just don't trust their own governments because the governments are manipulating the way statistics are being gathered themselves.
And science and everything else. Education. Pete says Carney is an authoritarian dictator. Full stop. The level of denialism in Canada is mind-boggling. Denialism, but again, it's because people have been trained and propagandized enough that now that's the reality they live under.
I don't think we've seen anything yet. He just got his majority. He's passing all these bills, but he hasn't actually set the precedent by getting a conviction yet. Once he sets all the precedents, there's going to be a certain point where he's really going to turn it on.
Chris Calgary says, Scott Reed is such a sleazeball. His son works for Carney. LOL, pathetic. Well, you want to keep in good graces of the balls.
Well, yeah, and I'll say something else about Carney. If Donald Trump goes to a year-on-year review, which they currently have with the USMCA, he can slowly pick Canada apart. And I think that's the best way to put the hurt on them, especially if you can follow it up with a J.D. Vance. Break them down slowly over time because Carney won't have an answer to that. If he completely pulls out of the USMCA, which Trump very well might do after the midterms, that gives Carney a mechanism he could use, which is he can declare the Emergencies Act at that point and declare economic emergencies and start doing a lot of radical things, a lot of authoritarian things.
Which we've been saying this since last year, I think, even before that, before we moved to this studio.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go back and look whenever we're talking about the USMCA, we're already talking about this being a possibility because even back then, Canada was showing that they were not going to do anything or cooperate.
Yeah.
Pete says, so to anybody that is surprised, especially the liberals saying, how could Trump do this? What's going on? How this is not fair? Well, you've been warned for about a year now that Canada was going down this path of not wanting to negotiate and that Trump was very much going to do this. And also that Carney could use this as an opportunity to declare, for example, an emergency and use special powers.
Well, and this is the thing you have to realize, if Trump does pull out and say Carney did use the Emergencies Act, it's not like the last time. Justin Trudeau didn't have a majority government. Mark Carney does. There's nothing the Conservatives can do, or there's nothing any other party can do at this point. If he calls the Emergencies Act, he has full control over it at that point. There is no real opposition because of his majority government.
Pete says they got a deal on the Gordie Howe Bridge.
Yeah, Gordie Howe is how you say it.
I always want to say
one of the most famous Canadians.
Like the Geordie Shore. The thing is, I have Geordie like.
Who the hell's Geordie? A G is Gordie.
Speaking of London and Britain and stuff. No, never mind. Pete says it wasn't fair. I'm sure somebody out there knows what I mean. Pete says it wasn't fair when you looked into the details. The announcement is a fair deal, but look at the details. Rage. It is a good deal now. The bridge will get paid for. It's going to be the de facto route when it opens. I was PO'd until I dove into the details. The Americans had a real argument.
Oh, yeah, they did.
About the bridge.
100%. And the major argument they made is there's already multiple other routes, whether it's the tunnel or I think there's another bridge as well. And with the new bridge is what's going to happen. That would be the main route, but it's going to divert a lot of other traffic that the Americans get a percentage of or a part of. And what are they going to do? Divert that traffic, divert the profits to the main Canadian bridge and not get anything of that. And that was their main argument. And there's a lot of other things in there. I think they had a real argument.
Yes.
But I don't think Trump would have said anything if they would have just negotiated everything at once and tried to renew the USMCA. Trump really feels slighted right now. This is going to turn into a trade war, and it's going to continue under a J.D. Vance if he gets in office.
Mm-hmm. Pete says, I've printed out and have been wiping my behind with it for 3 months. And Rage Against the Machine asks, where the hell is Todd? Yeah, Todd's not here. Hopefully he's safe and maybe filming, creating more content and using his new phone. Okay, let's go to, where were we? Tony, I'm going to say Tony, says Alberta will have a president and not a prime minister. Yes. And also says, James Halliday says never attached to the crown again. Rage Against the Machine says we will have to declare a unilateral declaration of independence.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about that. I'll wait to after October 19th to start bringing that back up again. But as long as Danielle Smith is in there, it's going to be a real threat to even going ahead with a binding referendum. We need a leadership review on Danielle Smith. If we're successful at that and we can get somebody in there that can actually win an election within Alberta, like a Keith Wilson, we'll be in a good place. If not, we're not going to be in a good place as long as Danielle Smith is still in there. Now, we have control over that because we control the UCP. It's not a province-wide election that determines whether Danielle Smith stays or goes.
Bila Hillier, hello. Thank you for being here. It says, just joining you guys. Hope you're doing well. Rachel's Machine says, all distraction and destruction. You will own nothing and be happy. Yes, exactly.
Well, and I always forget to say it. If you can like the video, because if we can ever get to 100 likes, the next day it pushes it out to a wider audience. Yes. And we're trying to get outside of the echo chamber to that wider audience. So hopefully we can really get people out voting on October 19th.
Yes. Thank you. Pure Sangwe says he's a Karen S-lib. Yeah. The comment, but any of the commentators we've shown right now talking against, for Mark Carney rather, yes. And Yazinski says brainwashed zombies are lib and the media following the agenda. And taught to do so and actually being useful to those that are still paying attention. Rage Against Machine says Alberta cannot leave soon enough. Yes, completely agree. Okay, now let's, hold on, where were we?
Alberta and the world, I think.
I know, but I need to bring that comment down. Okay, now let's head into Alberta and the world. Yes, let's start with this from EXX Alerts. CNN's Jake Tapper shows Rosie O'Donnell the Dr. Trump AI video shared by President Trump where he diagnosed O'Donnell with Trump derangement syndrome.
And we showed this, but if they're talking about it and ask Rosie O'Donnell about it, they are triggered. The same thing with the Pierre Poilievre hamburger video. If the mainstream media is bringing things up, they are triggered.
Trump recently posted this AI slop on his social media platform.
Have you or someone you know been diagnosed with TDS? The symptoms can be relentless. Fortunately, I'm Dr. Trump, and I have a treatment plan. Let's hear what some of my patients have to say.
I have been suffering for over a decade, and after listening to Dr. Trump, I can see some results.
Again, that's the President of the United States posting that, and the Emmy Award-winning Rosie O'Donnell is here now. Thanks so much for joining us. What's your reaction to that AI-generated video sent out by the President of the United States showing you and Robert De Niro and Julia Roberts and Whoopi Goldberg, et cetera?
Well, I think I'm in good company, number one. And number two, I seem to be the, obsession he can't get rid of. He's obsessed with Barack Obama, and I think that's because he's innately a racist. And he's obsessed with me because I think he's innately a sexist.
And her response, she starts off normal, like, oh, she's taking it in stride, and then he's a racist, he's a sexist, of course.
Literally proves the point of the video.
She's just pushing more people to vote for J.D. Vance when that's her response.
Exactly.
Well, and I will say, I didn't bring the clip up the other day, but Stephen A. Smith was addressing similar things where he's saying we shouldn't be calling all Republicans racist or this or that. I actually agree with some of the issues. And that's the way, that's the kind of candidate you're going to want for 2028. Even if you're not going to win, you need a candidate that's going to bring the Democrats back to sanity. The midterms are going to determine whether they go that route or they don't, because right now in the midterms, they're pushing hard for socialism. And I have a feeling socialism or communism will work on a state by state or city by city basis. But when you go into a national presidential election, you're not going to have a critical mass of people that are going to vote for that. And I think that might be the ultimate downfall of the Democrats.
And Yazinski, thank you so much for the $2 super chat asking why would they be triggered? LOL. Because anything does, essentially. But next, we have this from Call to Activism saying, quote, Mitch McConnell's health update takes a bizarre turn after a neighbor says the ambulance that responded had, quote, no urgency as Mitch's allegedly lifeless feet were not covered by a blanket.
Yeah, and the rumor now is that he's in a coma. It's going to be very interesting what happens here. I'll wish him the best, even though I haven't been the biggest fan of him. That being said, if they replace him, they're going to be one step closer to getting the SAVE Act passed, and that's going to be absolutely huge. The SAVE Act would require voter ID and would all but, I think, ensure the 2028 election.
You want me to play it?
You can play it, yeah.
Not riding with them.
Okay, and you can leave it there. We kind of go into the next story. I just kind of wanted to bring that up because as the SAVE Act comes back up in the news, that could be one of the big deciding factors.
Lastly, Vivek Sen says, quote, Palantir CTO, Chief Technology Officer, quote, for $10 billion, Elon Musk put 300 rockets in orbit. For $11 billion, the state of California has built 1,600 feet of elevated rail with no rail.
And Canada and Mark Carney need to be taking note. This is what competition produces. It produces great results. When you don't have competition and you create monopolies like in the dairy cartel, or like how Mark Carney is trying to do with the natural resource sector by pushing out private investment and offering only the government investment, it slows things down, and this is why things come way over budget.
But that's why they like it, because it offers way more governmental control over whatever we're talking about.
And it offers way more corruption.
Yes.
Maybe the philosophical point, at the risk of saying something a little controversial, is I think monopsony is the root of what ails us here. You know, when we were building ICBMs, the Army, Air Force, and Navy were all competing. There was no joint program office. It was this American aesthetic of competition is going to make us better. When we were building submarine-launched ballistic missiles, we had 4 concurrent competing programs. There was real fundamental risk to buy down, and the retrospective analysis is it was cheaper and faster. People often throw out this idea that, oh, if we have all these parallel efforts, it's going to be more expensive, but history would suggest that you go faster. You don't achieve 85% reduction in launch costs like SpaceX without that sort of competition. And you know, NASA's own internal cost estimates of building the Falcon 9 was, using cost accounting, it would have been $4 billion, but Elon did it for $400 million. For $10 billion, Elon has put 300 rockets in orbit. For $11 billion, the state of California has built 1,600 feet of elevated rail with no rail. So I think so monopsony is a structural part of, like, that's kind of part of your reality. So then you have to kind of wake up every day and try to fight that back a little bit and think about, how do I approximate market mechanisms? At some fundamental level, we either believe in the free market or we don't. I like to quip that everybody, including the Russians and the Chinese, have given up on communism, except for Cuba and the DoD. You know, we have these 5-year centralized plans. And so we need a little bit more overlap, because that's where innovation comes from. And that's what enables industry to self-organize around this and pushes us to do better. We often fixate on how much competition, you know, we need more competition in industry. By all means, let's have that. But what I think we're actually missing, the highest order bit, is that we need more competition inside of government. That's how you break the monopsony and encourage innovation in that spirit. And I think that's a big part of how we can go much faster together.
Yeah, and Canada is doing the exact opposite when it comes to that. And we are going to bring up, I think tomorrow I have an article on it, about Canada trying to launch satellites into space. The only way they're going to get them up there is through Elon Musk. They're way over budget at this point. They could have simply subcontracted oh God, what's Elon Musk's satellite company?
Starlink?
They could have just subcontracted Starlink, had all of remote Canada for having free internet at that point. Yeah. They would have literally just took the money they gave to the Canadian company that has produced nothing at this point but a bunch of corruption. Everybody would have had free internet in northern Canada.
The point is the whole bunch of corruption. And again, I'm not a huge fan of Palantir.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, an important point he did raise there. And Yasinski, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, saying, since the Mitch McConnell news, more and more Avatar TikTok videos. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. I mean, we do, even if I'm not a fan of McConnell at all either.
Oh, what's the Avatar TikTok videos? I haven't seen them.
Well, like making fun of him.
Oh, they were making fun of him. Yeah, I haven't been a big fan of Mitch McConnell. That being said, I'm not gonna wish bad ill on anybody, and it looks like he's probably going to be replaced, even if he makes some kind of recovery, because he's in extremely bad shape.
And he's been for a while.
And he's been for a while. I was going to bring up some other clips. I decided not to with that. That being said, it looks like he's probably going to be replaced by somebody that does support the SAVE Act, and that's going to be the big implication there.
Yeah. Okay, now we'll go back to your comments, and then maybe or maybe not to our UMBLE. It seems like there is no sound on our UMBLE. It happens when power goes out.
Yeah.
And then it's impossible to bring it back up and fix it.
I'll check it. You read the
Stephen Jensen says Todd is at the golf course with his stepmom right now. Interesting. I don't know if that's a joke or not. Pete says, I think I saw Todd running from a bear in the Kenanax. I know that one is probably a joke. Stephen Jensen says, oh, no, he was here. There was no stop. Oh, okay.
Oh,
well,
fantastic.
say hi to him for us. Hold on. Raging's Machine says, wasn't that a meme? Funny as hell. Mistaken identity for Rosie O'Donnell. Yes. Rage Against Machine says anything triggers this.
Our UMBLE is not working. That happens usually when the power goes out or if your UI is messed up.
I will read your comments though over on our UMBLE if you're made your way over here from there, but we won't go over to our UMBLE because again, there's no sound. Rage Against the Machine, I do agree. Anything triggers these people. Yeah, that's the whole point of their raison d'etre, their reason of being. Pete says, so who was that man? I would have pulled him over, but I was going way faster than him. Stephen Jensen says, their heads are popping like a zit. Yes. Pete says, you cannot outrun a grizzly, but all you need to do is outrun your partner. I'll take that in mind. I'll keep that in mind. I think I might be faster than the guy at this point. Rage Against the Machine says, that's right, Pete, or trip him. Rage Against the Machine says, I don't do TikTok. Neither do I, but the channel does have a TikTok. And again, we will start uploading shorts or TikTok videos to that now as well. And Yazinski says, I see TikTok when it shows up on Facebook or YouTube. I see it when it shows up on both, Facebook, YouTube, or X. That's how I consume TikTok because I've been against it for the longest time. I've even made videos against it too. Can you come back and stop eating now? Thank you.
I had a pistachio.
Yes, it's not pistachio time. It's show time. It's pistachio time after.
I had to use the restroom as well.
Rage Against the Machine says,
and now you see how I'm treated.
Do you want to be a victim? You'll be treated as one. Rage Against the Machine says, we paid for that bridge. Now the U.S. Collects for it because that's the kind of deal makers we are. We're not good at it. Pure Sangwe says, another Karen.
A fair deal would have been the initial tolls that pay off the construction of the bridge would go to Canada. And then after that, having a 50-50 split. That being said, Carney can't even cut that kind of deal.
Yes. Pure Sangwe says, all these parties are split. The whole system is effed. I'm going to have to say yes. Rage Against the Machine says, I would rather we partner up with the USA than China. And yet we're going all in on China.
Or Saudi Arabia or all these other countries that he says Trump's the biggest evil man in the world. And he says, we don't have the similar values. Okay, you don't have similar values, but they're still a lot closer than all these other countries you're trying to buddy up to. I don't like Mark Carney's values personally, but I still say Trump and Carney are probably closer in values than Saudi Arabia or China.
Mm-hmm. Pure Sangway says, Trump did say he'll take Canada with economic force. Essentially by Canada's own stupidity. More than even economic force.
Well, and Mark Carney knows if he partners up with China or Saudi Arabia, he can implement whatever he wants in his own country. So he can implement communism or his own value set. If he teams up with the United States, they're going to demand traditional Western values be implemented, and he's not willing to give that up.
Mm-hmm. Pure Sangway says there's no audio on your RUMBLE channel. Yes, which is why we won't be heading over there. Miss Carol says, I'm not having any trouble hearing you both, but the video clips are so quiet I can hardly hear them. Interesting, because we hadn't heard that. I will check after the show as well and try to change the
video
levels.
clips or the live?
It says the video clips.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Like when we play video, it's too quiet.
Oh, okay.
Steve Savaro says August 3rd is the deadline to identify a McConnell replacement due to Kentucky law before the midterms.
Oh, what's the date on that?
August 3rd.
August 3rd, okay.
So in less than a month.
Less than a month, yeah.
And Rage Against the Machine says, Guy is always eating. Yes, he is. Rage Against the Machine says, Carney has no values. He has a whole book written called Values, but no.
Communist values, he has.
Exactly. KP for you over in RUMBLE says, so how are we? No. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I'm finally a UCP member. Now, how do we get rid of the witch? LOL. Guy, you can get the cross ready and now forage for firewood. Again, that's a joke.
Shortly after October 19th, we can call for a leadership review. Hopefully, Mitch Sylvester continues telling everybody to get UCP memberships. I know I am, because when that leadership review comes in, we're going to have a chance to vote. Now, having a chance to vote, they're trying to change the rules. So you have to buy a ticket for an event, this and that. They're trying to kind of, I think, box a lot of the independence people out. But the best thing we can do right now is make sure we have those memberships, and then hopefully maybe fundraise so we have a fund so we can buy those tickets in mass and make sure independence members are there.
And again, I will read, I will read this conversation because it actually answers a lot of what you're saying. Portofino answers KP4U saying you have to buy a ticket for the AGM in November where you can vote. KP4U says, really? Can't I just vote online? Portofino says, nope. KP4U says, do you know what day and how much of those tickets go for? Portofino says, I paid $139 for early bird. Now it's $199. It's November 27th to 29th. It's a weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering all those questions.
And I mean, I don't know how much of a boat I'm by myself. I think the future of Alberta independence really depends on that leadership review on Danielle Smith 100%. And I think we should be fundraising to buy those tickets for people that have UCP memberships that support Alberta independence to make sure we can get our people within there. Because that was a big issue. A lot of people were complaining about. They just can't afford it.
And again, it seems purposeful.
Well, yeah, because the traditional conservatives or the national conservatives within Alberta can't afford it because they're on the other side.
Okay, but now I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Please stay safe out there. If you're watching the Argentina game or if you're watching the UFC fight, have a great time, as we will be doing both those things now. Hopefully it does stop raining here and it's not raining over there. We'll see you back on Monday at 5 p.m. And again, look out for those shorts coming out probably either today, tomorrow, or over the next couple days. And we'll let you know as well.
Adios.
Have a great rest of your night, day, whatever.